I'm a night security guard, and I just watched footage of my own death. Update 2 by Mr. Outlaw. The events that have transpired over the past week have taught me that I really don't know much about the world, but I do know one thing. I couldn't stay at Jack's anymore. The few days I've been here have pretty much consisted of me simply lounging around. I'll admit it, I'm scared to go back to the city. All I know is that my copy hasn't been tracking me. I'm not entirely sure how he found me at the police station, but what matters is that he can't seem to find me now. But a new problem has presented itself. I think somebody else is looking for me. Last night, I was having a cigarette on the back porch when I noticed some kind of disruption in the crop field. It was dark, and I wasn't really paying attention initially, so I didn't catch it until it was uncomfortably close. Something was moving around in there, making its way towards the house. I was on extreme edge at this point, so I immediately ran back in. I told Jack what I'd seen, and he subsequently stormed out there with his shotgun. I waited tense for what felt like 15 minutes, and then I was jarred by a booming shot, and then another one. Jack rushed back in, eyes frantic, and locked the door behind him. "What's going on?" he said, sounding petrified. "Don't tell me they're after you." "What did you see? Did it look like me?" I asked him. He shook his head. "What? No, it's like some dudes in body armor or something. I don't know. Look, if they're after you, then you best speak up now." That was the issue. I didn't know who he was talking about. The situation suddenly escalated when I saw flashing red and blue coming from the outside. The cops were here as well, presumably drawn in by the gunshots. "Oh no, man," Jack blurted out. "Everything's here. They better not snoop around." And then he turned to me. "Look, if something's going on with you, then you should probably leave." "Leave," I said, in disbelief. "There's cops out front and weird armored people in the back. Where am I supposed to go?" He shrugged. "I don't know." We could hear heavy footsteps making their way up to his front door. "I suppose you could take your chances and hide here. I can't stop you now," he said. And then they started knocking. I made my way upstairs while Jack opened the door and talked to the cops. I hid in one of the bedrooms and I eavesdropped on one of the conversations. It started out calm enough, but it escalated rather quickly. All of their voices started raising at an exponential rate. It sounded like Jack was on the defensive about something. I could make out what he was saying, albeit just barely. "Look, there's no one here," he yelled. All of a sudden, footsteps began storming up the stairs. I didn't have time to ask what was going on. They were looking for me, and for too many obscure reasons to probably count. I opened up the window and jumped out before they could find me. While I was out there, I considered attempting to steal the police car, but I suppose I wasn't ballsy enough for that. Instead, I simply started running. I knew that there was another town, about a 2-hour drive from where I was. But in terms of walking, well, let's just say that I had a trek ahead of me. After about an hour of walking along the empty road at night, a truck stopped for me. Now, under normal circumstances, there is no way that I would have gone with this guy. To put it bluntly, he looked like a serial killer. But the situation at hand seemed to necessitate it. Plus, it started to feel like I was being followed. "You going somewhere, bud?" the driver asked, with a black-toothed grin. I smiled back. "Yeah, you down to give me a lift?" Unsurprisingly, he didn't go where I was directing him. Instead, he went down some sketchy trail. I started anticipating when my first move was going to be. I'd taken a pocket knife from Jack's house, and I was clutching it in my hand as he drove. I decided that the time was right when he stopped us in front of a rusty shack. "All right," he said, sounding comically foreboding. "Time to get out." Okay then, I thought. I could see him start reaching into his pocket, but I was faster. One jab to the ribs and he was screaming. I followed up by elbowing him in the face and dumping his squirming body on the ground outside. But not before I took his wallet. As I started driving away, I could see about 4 more equally sketchy-looking dudes coming out of the shack. I shuddered, not really wanting to think about what they had in store for me. In any case, I had a bigger issue at hand. I drove to the town that I was talking about earlier and used some cash that I'd taken from the guy's wallet to rent a motel room for a few nights. Whilst I was sitting in my dingy accommodations, I started trying to put the pieces together. My copy was trying to kill me. There were multiple versions of my copy. There were dudes in body armor roaming around in Jack's crops. The cops were looking for me, and I really couldn't go back to my apartment. Nope, I had no clue what was going on. Feeling frustrated, I decided to head out for a few drinks. The dude had around $600 in his wallet, so I was going to splurge for some Heinekens. I'd also found a small revolver in his truck, so I took it with me. Safe to say, I wasn't feeling safe. I made my way over to the tavern and I sat at the bar. I ordered 2 beers and some chicken wings because, why not? Just as I was getting relaxed, the bartender seemed to recognize me. "Hey, you again," he said to me. Oh no, I thought to myself. Apparently my copy had been here earlier, presumably looking for me. "How long ago?" I asked him. Looking confused, he responded, "About 10 minutes ago, don't you remember?" 10 minutes. Feeling a bit nauseous, I went to the washroom and weighed my options. I suppose that it made sense to stay, given the fact that the copy had already left. I mean, he wouldn't have any reason to come back, right? As it turns out, I was wrong. Out of nowhere, I started getting a headache, and then my vision went wonky. I mean, I could still see, but my sight was distorted. That's the best way I can put it. It quickly subsided, but the nuisance was replaced by sounds of commotion coming from the bar. It sounded like somebody was arguing about something. It sounded like I was arguing about something. It was my voice. It was him. The bathroom door suddenly kicked open and somebody walked in, eventually coming to a stop right outside my stall door. I wasn't taking any chances. I pulled out the revolver and fired off 2 rounds right then and there. I was met with surprised, labored groans as I climbed out the top. I landed right beside him, right beside my copy. This was the first time that we'd stared each other down directly. Staring into my own hate-filled eyes was something of an abstract feeling. It sure didn't feel right. The headache and vision problems began coming back. I could tell that it was affecting him as well. It looked like he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so that explained why he was still standing. Flight or fight, I thought. An extremely quick deliberation yielded flight. I fired off another round at him. The bullet narrowly grazed his ear, and then I ran out of there, into the confused and horrified faces of the bar patrons. Behind me, he fired off another shot of his own, but luckily, none of them connected. Zigzagging my way through the streets and alleys, I took a convoluted route back to the motel parking lot, where I got into my commandeered vehicle and floored it out of there. I had only made it about half an hour before the truck started breaking down. It then took me 2 more hours of walking in order to reach civilization again. Another small town and another dingy motel. And that's where my current situation has placed me. Obviously, I don't see an end in sight. I'm on constant high alert, adrenaline fueling my paranoia. I think it's paid off, honestly. I've seen the same black sedan drive past my window about 4 times now. We'll see what happens next.